Assalamu alaikum. So we discussed lack of evidence about the hijab from the Quran, lack of evidence about hijab in Sunnah, the books of Sunnah, or anything attributed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as an authentic. And we also, we mentioned briefly about the culture between free women and slave women. Right now, let's come to the modern days culture. And when I say how is this idea, because people like me remember when hijab became very dominant and spread like wildfires in the Middle East. And modern time actually starts with the petrodollar and post-colonial establishment of many of the Arab countries that did not exist, after the World War II, after mostly the Muslim world was under French or British colonial power. Then the liberation came about. Egypt became independent. Many places in the Middle East became countries, and Algeria became independent, Tunisia became independent, Libya became independent, and all these countries, became very wealthy. They discovered oil, and mainly in the Gulf region, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and stuff. And in that region, the dominant ideology was the Salafi Wahhabi ideology. That is basically the extremist ideology in Islam. Very Puritan. They tilt toward everything is haram and forbidden. Everything is just absolutely a nightmare theology for anybody that wants to live their life in a normal way. And post-colonial, you had Egypt, which is the heart of the Arab world, coming out from the British colonial legacy and asserting their identity, and the rise of Islamic movements. You have, nationalism became very strong. Parallel to nationalism, Islamic movements came into existence. The Muslim Brotherhood, mainly in the Middle East, they became a very strong force to reckon with. They fought the British. They were fighting all over the place, and they actually brought Jamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt into the presidency. They played a part in it. So all these factors right now are the Islamic groups. They wanted to distinguish themselves. They wanted to spread an ideology that is unique to these new countries, a new ideology. They wanted to distinguish themselves from the Kafir West, and they wanted to establish and go back to establish an Islamic rule that mirrors what they think is the Khilafah after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. They wanted to imitate what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They wanted to imitate that rule. They basically wanted to go back to the 7th century in many religious, social aspects. So the idea of hijab came into being, and women were pushed to wear hijab. The battle of hijab started with the Muslim Brotherhood working with Abdel Nasser in Egypt, and wanted Abdel Nasser to make the hijab mandatory on every Muslim woman. Remember, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna. Hassan al-Banna actually was told by Jamal Abdel Nasser, the head the president of Egypt. He told him, if you want me as a president of Egypt to enforce hijab and make it mandatory in schools and university and encourage people, Egyptian women, to wear it, why don't you start with your own daughters? Even his daughters were not wearing hijab. There are pictures from the 50s, from the 60s, from the 70s. The most prestigious university, Islamic university in the world, it's been around for 1,100 years, is Al-Azhar University. There are pictures of Sharia classes in no schools for women not wearing hijab. Absolutely amazing. You have the head in the 1960s, you have the picture of the head of Al-Azhar University hugging his daughter, now adult, grown-up daughter, not wearing hijab. His wife not wearing hijab. So hijab was not very common. It was practiced by very old people. Mainly, I remember my grandmother covering even her face. But it was not common occurrences in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in Iraq, in Iran, in Egypt, in North Africa, in any place. But then that petrodollar, those people, the worker would go to Saudi Arabia, the oil was discovered, and they worked there, and the money was great. They make money, they send it back home, but they got indoctrinated into that Salafi Wahhabi ideology. And then they worked there 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. They brought it back with them to Pakistan, to India, to Iraq, to Lebanon, to Syria, to throughout the Middle East. And they brought that ideology of covering, of hijab, of growing a beard, of dressing up different. They brought it with them, and Saudi Arabia had lots of money to spend. I remember when I was president of an Islamic society, I used to receive so many books for free from Saudi Arabia to spread it, Salafi book, Wahhabi books, to give it to the Muslim attendant the mosque. So they spent billions and billions of dollars spreading that ideology, and they were successful. They changed the character of the Arab world. Right now, they're paying the price, and they're trying to change it back. They're trying to say, well, in Saudi Arabia in the 70s, women did not wear hijab. That they're saying that. So they're trying to reverse all that money they pumped in to Islamize, for the Islamization of the society. And they targeted women. They targeted women. They targeted women and wanted to have our society being distinguished from the West with the way we dressed. Not with the scientific discoveries, not with the scientific advancement, not with technology, but with women hijab. I was reading something yesterday in Pakistan that some government in Pakistan making it mandatory for women to go to school to wear hijab. This is a travesty. This is a tragedy. Is using people as a tool to advance a political cause, to strengthen Islamic groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, like Jama'at Tabligh, like the Jama'at Islamiyah in Pakistan. There's so many groups. You know, everyone wants just to take it on women. And it all starts with wearing hijab. You see it here in America. Major Muslim organization trying to emphasize that hijab is Islamic, and they sue if a woman gets fired because she's wearing hijab. I respect that, and I honor that. It's they're defending Muslim as they see it. But honestly, hijab is not an important factor anywhere near Islam. It's a culture. It's a political statement. It's not a woman. It's not a woman identity. A woman identity in charity, in being, in giving, in working hard, in discovering things, in making a humanity better. It's not what we wear. It's not what's we put on our head. It is exactly what is inside our head. I will stop with this. I concluded this series about hijab. I hope you enjoyed it. You benefited from it. This is all my opinion, and you got to do your own research and your own stuff. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.